Good morning, and thank you for joining us for our webinar about hiring in a post-COVID environment, hosted by Central Mountain and West Central Small Business Development Centers, also known as SBDCs. Jamie Bilsbach and I serve as the center directors, Jamie at Central Mountain and me at West Central. If you're unfamiliar with SBDC services across Colorado, we help small businesses navigate the road to success by offering no-cost consulting and low-cost trainings like these. So today we're here to talk about hiring. The last 20 months has been an exercise in flexibility and adaptability for sure. So to help us make sense and guide us as we move forward, it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker, Courtney Berg, owner of Courtside Consulting. Courtney, if you want to throw that slide up for me, I'd appreciate it.
You bet.
Courtney's a consultant and highly credentialed gifted speaker. We're lucky to have her with us today. She has 30 years experience in HR and human and operations management. She's held several positions in both HR and operations for nonprofit, for-profit, and a variety of industries. She's passionate about HR issues, leading people, designing management and HR systems, and philosophies to improve employee engagement, performance, and productivity. She's a member of the Small Business Advisory Council, and she has been featured in Inc. magazine on how to conduct annual employee reviews. So it's my pleasure to introduce to you, Courtney. So with that, Courtney, I'm going to let you take it over.
Nancy, thank you so much for that nice introduction. I appreciate it. And Nancy and Jamie both, thank you for inviting me to speak today. So good morning. You know, we're going to be talking about hiring, and what we're going to be doing is really looking at the environment that we're hiring people in, as well as moving into those areas which we can control. So you've probably heard about the unemployment numbers, you've heard about the Great Resignation and wondered if that's really a thing. Where can you find candidates? Because I know right now, even with the unemployment being higher, it's still difficult to find candidates. And so what's going on with that? And then also I want to really dig into the most important question that you can ask, and we're going to talk a lot about that as well. So let's get started. Right now, you know, unemployment on a federal level is at 4.6%, and that was in October. It's showing some downward trending from the pre-pandemic numbers. So you can see there that, you know, unemployment in April of 2020 got up to 14.8, whereas now it's at about 4.6. And that's federal. In Colorado, we're seeing that it's about 5.6 statewide. But I did look at some county numbers. So the highest unemployment rates you'll see on the left-hand side of the columns there. So Pueblo and Warfano and Los Animas. And over on the right-hand side are some counties that should be around your area. So I got this information from the Coloradoan, and you can actually Google that and go onto the Coloradoan and enter your county if it's not listed here and get more information about the unemployment numbers specifically to your area. But I thought it was important to identify what does unemployment look like in the areas that we're talking about, and you know, what does the labor force look like based on unemployment? So all of these numbers that we're starting to see are caused by what's being dubbed as the Great Reassessment. I was reading a Forbes article a few weeks ago, and they talked about this Great Reassessment, where many of us, if not all of us, are truly reassessing what we're doing. Are we happy? Are we fulfilled? What's important to me? What can I be doing to make those things important to me the focus of my life? And I think a lot of people, as they spent time on Zoom over the last 18 months, started thinking, wow, this isn't what I want to be doing. What do I really want to be doing? And many of them developed new skills. And when they developed those new skills, they went back to their employer and said, hey, I learned this. Can I use this here? And in some cases, that skill wasn't needed at that particular job, or maybe there wasn't a place for it with that job because somebody else was already fulfilling that role. So these people develop these skills, find out what's important to them, and they start saying, okay, I'm reassessing what I want to do, and I'm going to put these puzzle pieces back together in my life. And I'm going to say, okay, these are the things that I want to do with each piece that they put together. But at times, they looked at a piece and they said, you know what, I don't want to do that. And so work sometimes has been falling out of that puzzle. That puzzle piece has changed, and they're resigning from their job and not coming back to work, or maybe turning in their notice, or just saying, hey, I've got another job. In some cases, honestly, people are getting text messages, no 2 weeks notice, and these employees are just vanishing. So they have decided that work piece isn't fitting into their puzzle anymore. So what happens? That's where the Great Resignation comes from. So we're seeing that these workers are starting to really reassess what they're doing and think about, do I want to be working? So when you're looking at your workforce, there were some surveys that I looked at and just reviewed, and Bankrate did a survey in August of 2021. So it just happened a few months ago. Out of the survey of American workers that they conducted, 55% of those American workers are planning on leaving their job in the next 12 months. That's a huge chunk. That's more than half the workforce are planning on leaving their job. Now, globally, Microsoft did a similar survey and found 41% of the global workforce is planning on leaving the workforce in the next several months. 74% of the people that LinkedIn surveyed are reevaluating their current work situation and thinking about leaving. The primary reasons were burnout and stress. And those were the primary concerns that those employees had. So lots of different things going on here where people are reassessing and then resigning and then looking for other jobs. So these people are actually just leaving. They're just walking off the job in some cases. They're not even looking back. They're just saying, I'm gone. And we must start expecting our workforce to have turnover if you're not already expecting it or already seeing it. With more than half of the people that you have on staff right now potentially be looking for another job, that's frightening. How do you hire new people? How do you have the money to train them, to pay for the overtime of the people that are covering for the open spots? There are some really tough questions that you've got to be asking yourself. And what I would suggest is you ask, what am I doing to keep my employees, right? In the past, it was a fair wage. It was their job. It was getting them engaged, and everything was great. And they would just stay and they would work, but that's not the case anymore. So what we're seeing is people are really looking for a work-life balance. They maybe worked from home, or they saw others working from home, or their spouse worked from home, and they saw that there was a much greater work-life balance that was going on. Productivity levels actually went up with people that were working from home statistically. So they had an argument of, hey, I'm doing more, I'm more productive, and I'm also meeting the needs of my family at the same time. Flexible work hours, those are other things that people are looking at. So they would rather work when they want to work, rather than, okay, I'm going to come into the office, I'm going to sit at my desk, I'm going to work from 8 to 5 or 9 to 5, or work these particular hours that are set up by the business. They would rather say, yeah, I'm going to work for a couple of hours, and then I'm going to go do these things, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to work for a couple of hours, and then I'm going to have a meal, and then I'm going to work for a few hours. And some of these people ended up working at 3 a.m. because that's when they wanted to work, and they liked that flexibility. So obviously remote work is one of the things that they're looking for. Developmental opportunities. So they are looking to be developed and trained and groomed and really, have their skill set grow as they're working, and make that, I guess, that employment experience even deeper, because they're able to grow their skill set and become proficient at other areas that maybe they're interested in, but they don't have that skill for. And then compensation is on the list. People are saying, yes, compensation is a factor. So we're seeing that minimum wage come up in Colorado. I think it's going to be $256 or $252 starting in January 1st of next year. I'm sorry, to $12.56 or $12.52 starting in January of next year. And we're seeing that minimum wage come up. But what I'm seeing are advertisements at places like McDonald's that say that they're paying $18 an hour, $15 an hour, $17 an hour. And so we're seeing that businesses that we normally think of as a minimum wage business, we're seeing that come up more and more. We didn't actually talk about this, but if you have questions, go ahead and throw those in the chat. Nancy, if you'd keep an eye on that for me and let me know if questions happen. I am totally open to stopping the presentation per se and having a discussion if something comes up or if something I say you want to engage with and discuss further. So please let me know and we can stop. So all these people are leaving. Where are the candidates? Many business owners that I talk to have put out job advertisements. And when they do that, they're not seeing the candidate flow that they used to see. So where are they? Well, what we're seeing now is that it's really an employee market, right? The employees, the job candidates, they have the upper edge right now. Employers really don't. They don't have a lot of options to pull people in. So you need to cast maybe a bigger net than what you're used to. And there are certainly local publications that you can be using to put ads out, whether it's print or online job boards that are in your area. But I would suggest casting a bigger net, especially if you can have remote workers, so that you can start looking at online portals and online platforms to be putting that job advertisement out. Don't discount LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter for advertising your jobs, but also look at some of those other platforms. Now, Connecting Colorado is obviously the state website, and you can put a job there. ZipRecruiter, you hear a lot of advertisements about. JobSpider was one that I actually didn't know about until just recently. It's really a competitor of Craigslist. So it's something that you can look at for Craigslist. And if you go to fitsmallbusiness.com/free-job-posting-sites, if you go to that website, there's 32 or 36 job sites that are online that you could look at to potentially put your ad up. But rather than just online sites or maybe in print media or publications that might be geared towards your industry, so industry publications, there are other ways to find candidates as well. And what I would do is I would call it the 3-foot rule. So as business owners, when we're marketing, we look at, hey, people are standing near me. Maybe they need my services. Maybe they're interested in what I have to offer, my product or my service. And so let me start a conversation with them and talk to them about my business. And I want you to use that same philosophy when you're thinking about hiring employees. Start thinking about the people that are around you at football games, or when you're bowling, or when you're at the bank, or getting your car worked on or getting your oil changed, whatever that might be. People that are there, drum up a conversation with them, make a connection with them, and then talk to them about what they're doing. And is that what they want to do? And are they looking to make a change? Because if 55% of the people are starting to look, there are people that are currently employed that have their eyes open and they're looking around. So use that 3-foot rule that we use in marketing our businesses to market yourself as an employer of choice, and do that to get some candidates. I have a couple of stories that I've used this philosophy that's worked. I used to be a recruiter for a national insurance organization, and they would send me over to Utah about every other week to do some recruiting. And so when I would go there, I would have days of recruiting, and I would work with the career counselors at the colleges and universities and community colleges, and I would set up career fairs and those kinds of things. And then in the evening, I would go and have dinner. And many times I found that top candidates, the best candidates that I would locate on that trip, as servers at the restaurant where I was. And I would start talking to them as they brought the water, brought my food, and I would have a conversation with them, build a connection with them, and then say, is this where you want to be? Do you want to stay in the restaurant industry and hospitality? Do you want to move to a different restaurant? Do you want to do something different? And in those conversations, I found some great candidates. I did the same thing actually with someone who came to fix my plumbing in my bathroom in my apartment years ago, and had a conversation with her and said, so is this what you want to do? Like, is this where you want to be? You want to start running and managing apartment buildings, or what are you looking for? And she said, no. She said, I really am just trying to find a job. And so I got her in to do some pre-screening interviews. She was actually selected for a position and moved up in the company to executive leadership. So you never know where you're going to find somebody. Who would have thought that somebody was fixing plumbing turned out to be an executive leader years later? So just be open to the idea of what you're doing, and be open to the idea of being able to talk to people wherever you are. Any questions or anything? I see a couple of chat comments. Nancy, is there anything we need to address now, or should I keep moving on?
No, I think I'm the only one chatting in the chat box.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you chatting. Thank you.
Courtney, I did add the website Mountain Careers, because that's a great place for us in Western Colorado to post jobs and find candidates.
Oh, that's perfect. That's perfect. That's exactly what we want to do, is find those things. And I would encourage everybody who's on this call, if you're aware of websites like Mountain Careers, other websites that have worked for you in your industry, put those out there, share those with each other, because this group right here, when you make connections with people in meetings like this, it's really easy to start sharing ideas and sharing what has worked for you. Now, I have to say, if you don't come at the world as from a center of abundance and say, look, there's a lot of people out there, you might want to keep those things private. You might want to hang on to them and say, well, I'm not going to give out my good websites that I get candidates, but trust me, there are a lot of people that are looking for jobs. So be sure and share those with your peers, and work together to fill these jobs. I've even seen small businesses who are doing interviews that know of other small business owners that are looking for people. When a candidate doesn't work for one, they share it with those other people and say, hey, I've got a candidate that's really good at X. Does anybody need that? Because I don't need that skill right now. Great candidate, but doesn't work for my business. Do they work for yours? So be sure and share those candidates together. And I don't know, Nancy, does the SBDC have anything in your area that might facilitate a conversation like that? Or is that something that they can just do on their own?
Well, I will say that we get a lot of business owners who tell us when they're about to hire, and we have a large group of people that we work with. So sometimes we can do sort of that cross-pollination within our network centers, and Jamie can do the same.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I mean, that's just, the SBDC is a network, obviously, in and of itself, and a community in and of itself. And so being able to come to meetings like this and having some conversation back and forth, and then getting in touch with each other, I think that's really, really important. So if you're interested in sharing some of those candidates and sharing some of those ideas, be sure to put some information in the chat that people can draw from, your contact information, and have some connections when you leave this meeting.
I have a comment.
Yes.
So first of all, great idea. I love that feedback. I've been kind of doing that, in not an official manner, but I have interviewed a ton of individuals just in the 4 months that I've been with Ross Reels. I should have introduced myself. I'm Nicole at Ross Reels. Sorry.
Hi, Nicole.
But yeah, hi. And so, I've kind of done it just with the people that I know, because like you, Courtney, I'm always having these conversations with people. I'm like, hey, trying to figure out a place for someone that's a good fit. And so I'd be happy to give you my cell phone out if anyone is looking for someone, wants to reach out to me. I'd be happy to, share my cell phone. And if I could be of service, I'd be happy to do that.
Well, that's great. Nicole, thank you. Be sure and put that information in the chat so that everybody can grab that, because that's where, that's what these connections are all about. And I think the way that employers are going to make it through these next few months and make it through this employment challenge is going to be working together and really sharing candidates with people. I know that one of my clients owns 2 different restaurants. And so she's doing it internally, where if she interviews somebody for one restaurant, which is more of a high-end fine dining restaurant, and that person doesn't fit that environment, she also owns a burger joint. And so she'll send that candidate over to the manager of the burger joint that she owns and say, hey, talk to this person. And I think that that's what we need to be doing, is looking for those opportunities to make sure that One, your fellow employers have the employees they need to to stay in business, because that's great for the economy and great for the area. And the second thing is, wow, we want to employ these people and get them in the right fit and get them in the right job. So recruiting is not something that I currently do with my practice, but I sure do talk about hiring strategy a lot, just like what we're doing today. And I know that everybody out there is struggling, from candidates to employers, and everybody's having a little bit of a hard time trying to figure out how to navigate these interesting waters that we're in right now. So, okay, there's all of the things, that the information and, kind of that logistical information about hiring. And what I really want to do right now is move into a different conversation. Instead of talking about statistics and technology and those logistics, we're now going to talk about things that are within our control. If we can't control a job candidate, obviously we can't control them to take a job offer. We can't control if that job candidate is going to ghost us, or if they're just going to go to lunch and never come back. But we can control how we work with our employees, how we interact with our candidates and our employees, how we create the environment of where we're working. Those things, as business owners, as managers, we have direct influence over. So the important question that I think we need to be asking right now is, what is within our control, right? It's impossible to control people in situations that are completely out of our control. We just can't do that, right? We can't control others. We can't control other businesses. We can't control what other businesses do. We can only control what we're doing in our business and what we're doing with our employees. And then when we find those things that we can control, then we can make changes to those things that positively impact the outcome. So what I'm suggesting is thinking about what you can control in terms of job candidates, your job openings, your job candidates, employee engagement, your culture, and the communication, right? This labor market and the great resignation and the great reassessment are out of our control, right? What people are thinking that's out of our control, yet we have a lot of control within our own environments that we can take, but it just takes time and energy and dedication. And I know as a small business owner, sometimes that's the hardest thing, right? Is to have the energy and dedication to be able to do that, and especially the time. Our messaging is so important, just overall, either to our customers or to our employees. For example, I went to a bank that I've gone to for, 13 years, right? And I drove up on Saturday morning like I usually do, and I came through the drive-through and it said closed. And I thought, that is really strange. And I knew that they were having some staffing challenges, and it said closed. And I got up to the drive-through and there was a huge sign that said, this branch is temporarily closed. Now that message to me was, I've got to find a new branch, or I've got to find a new bank, right? As a customer, that's what it said to me. And I started thinking about what was really going on. And I called the bank a few days later during the week, and I said, hey, talk to me about what's going on. And they said, oh, it's just staffing. We just can't be open on Saturdays. Now, the sign that was up there was, this branch is temporarily closed. It was closed for Saturdays, and that's it. I started thinking I needed a new banking solution. What kind of messages are we sending to our customers or to our employees with the way that we're messaging things? So I want you to be careful on how you're messaging things that are going out, either externally to customers, but also internally to your employees. And that's one of those things that we definitely can control, is miscommunication, right? I was thinking about changing banks. What if you had that miscommunication with an employee, and they all of a sudden thought, oh, the business is going under, so I'm going to leave and I'm going to go somewhere else? Then you're compounding the problem, right? So be thinking about how you're messaging to the employees. So let's talk a little bit about job candidates in particular. It is their market, right? There are more jobs than employees that are available, and the employees can pick and choose where they want to work. And they can even pick and choose, wow, I don't want to work here anymore, I'm going to jump over here, and make that happen. Right? Flexibility mental health focus, working hours, the stress within the work, all of those things are part of what the employees are looking at when they come to work every day. Do I want to come to work? Do I want to come to work here? Do I want to work for this boss? All of those things they're looking at. And while we can't control their actions, we can make our environment helpful. So we want to make sure that they share our vision of the organization and where we're headed, that we're providing them a work-life balance that they need to be healthy, mentally, physically, emotionally. We want to make sure that we're providing that balance to them. And we're focusing on that mental health because that is huge right now. The pandemic has taken a toll on all of us. And so employees, part of the reason that they're ghosting employers or that they're moving on is because they just have hit a limit and they don't know what else to do. And so they just say, I'm done, and they walk away, right? They want meaningful work.
Hey, Courtney.
Yeah, please.
Would you define the term ghosting? We
Absolutely.
may not all know that.
Thank you so much. Ghosting. So that's those situations where an employee or a job candidate is in contact with you and suddenly they disappear, they ghost, they evaporate, right? So they go away. So sometimes you have situations where you've got a job candidate, you're in the final stages of the job offer, and you never hear back from them. They don't email you back, they don't call you back, they just disappear. Sometimes employees come in, they work in the morning, they leave for lunch, and you never hear from them again. Or maybe they text you and just say, I quit. And that's it. They're done. They're not going to talk to you again. So they ghost you, which means that they just leave, disappear, and you have no idea where they went. Does that help, Nancy? Thank you for
perfect. Thank you
for mentioning that. So let's talk about meaningful work. There's a lot of things that can be meaningful to people. Maybe it's flipping burgers. Maybe they realize that by flipping a good burger and getting that to a person, they're making their day, right? They're actually saying this person's having a hard day. They want a burger for lunch. And so the way that they make that burger, the way that they cook it, the way that they prep it and put the lettuce and the tomato and the mayo or whatever else you put on your burger, and the way that they put that together, that's impacting that person's day because they came there wanting a great burger, right? So even those, that kind of work certainly can be meaningful to somebody and make the difference between a good lunch and a bad lunch for them. And maybe that good or bad lunch is the only bright spot in their day. So that burger flipper can really make a difference on somebody. Maybe it's a mental health worker who's coming into work and they're working with these people that are under so much stress or having mental health difficulties because of the pandemic, because of the effects it's having on their job, they're having with their spouse or their kids. I think about all the kids right now that are trying to deal with the pandemic, and those mental health workers are coming into work and they're having to deal with teenagers who, I have a teenager. What should I say here? They're dealing with the teenagers that might have some hormonal issues going on, and that now they have this pandemic, the mental health stress and issues and anxiety from, if I go out, am I going to get this disease? I'm sneezing. What does that mean? Right? I have a cough. And it's not just the teenagers that are feeling that, your employees are feeling that too. So as employers, we have to provide a safe working environment, right? That's part of what you do to entice people, to attract people to your work environment. The job candidates, you want to pull them in by saying, here are the things that we're doing to keep our work environment safe and keep our employees safe. That's part of creating that safe environment for them. But it also tells them that you set up an environment that is not only safe, but healthy and engaging with the employees. And then you start tying together for these job candidates why that burger is important, right? You start tying together the meaningful work that they're going to be doing, no matter what their job is, how that works with and that ties into the overall goal of the organization, the impact on the community, the impact on the earth. It all depends on what your jobs are. So don't forget to really start to stress with job candidates how their job impacts the bigger picture, and how what they do every day makes a difference, not only in the organization or in the team within the organization, but also within the community at this time. Okay. Okay, so what is in our control with the job candidates? Here's some things. I always think of the hiring process, as a marketing opportunity. Let me tell you what I mean. I worked for an ambulance service, and part of my jobs, I was the sole HR director for that ambulance service. And part of my job was hiring employees. And I realized that when somebody came in and said, wow, I want to work in the billing department, or I'm an EMT, or I'm a paramedic, or, I'm a business development person. When they came into the ambulance service, they were an applicant at that point. They were a candidate for a job, but they also could go home and have somebody in their family have a heart attack or get injured themselves and have to call an ambulance in that community. And our ambulance is the one that would show up. So how I treated them could lend itself to how they feel about the ambulance service in general. If you don't respond to an application or a resume and that person knows they applied to you, they're telling all of their friends. I applied with ABC Dog Biscuit Company, and they never responded to me. I never heard from them again, right? So they're looking at that and saying, wow, I don't want to work for an organization that doesn't care about me. And they're telling all their friends not to work for the organization that doesn't care about them. And so therefore you have more trouble finding candidates. Responding to applications and resumes is within your control. And so what I would say is, if you do not want to run a blind ad, and what that means is, instead of saying ABC Dog Biscuit Company, you could say, a pet-focused organization is seeking right? And so it's more blind, it's more generic. It doesn't identify you specifically as an organization. Then you can choose if you're going to respond or not. But if you've got your brand in that advertisement, or if it's identifiable, you're the only pet-focused organization in the area, and people can say, well, I know that this ad is for ABC Dog Biscuit Company, then you want to make sure that you're responding to applications and resumes each time. The next thing is building trust with the job candidates. So that is being consistent, being transparent, demonstrating integrity, right? Do what you say you're going to do. I will get back to you on Thursday. Get back to them on Thursday, even if it's to say, ooh, we haven't made a decision yet. Let me contact you first of next week, right? Make sure that you're communicating with people and doing what you're saying. Make sure that you're honoring boundaries. You're not reaching out to them late at night or early in the morning. You're honoring kind of business hours. You're honoring maybe their boundaries of not automatically, here you're going through the candidate process, the application process, and I'm calling you at 8:30 at night. That's telling me that you might call me at 8:30 at night if I work for you. I don't want that. That's breaking a boundary. I'm not going to go there, right? So be thinking about these types of things as you work with the job applicants and the job candidates to build trust with them. All right. Communicate with them honestly, communicate with them openly and frequently. Make sure that they know that you're caring about them. Articulate how your business meets their needs. So here's that old, what's in it for me kind of attitude. You want to let that candidate know, hey, I know that your goals are here because you've told me that. Let me tell you how my business and working here in this job is going to help you get there, right? Make sure that you're articulating that well, and then market to them, be their employer of choice. All of these things start building that employer brand. And the employer of choice means everybody wants to work for you. That's the bottom line. So how are you going to do the things that we've talked about? Responding appropriately, building trust, articulating how your business meets their needs. How are you going to do all of those things so that they're not going out and saying, oh, don't apply with ABC Dog Biscuit Company. They're saying, ooh, do apply with ABC Dog Biscuit Company. They're talking to me. They're keeping me informed. They're responding to me all the time. They're really, I trust them, right? I know that I'm going to get ahead by working there. And so you want to build that brand with them. And that's in your control.
If I could just add, Courtney, you're talking about respecting those boundaries and all of that. I completely agree with you. I'll tell you, in the last few months, this is the first time I've ever been communicating with clients kind of on odd hours, only because they're requesting it.
Yep.
And so I'm kind of, so I just wanted to put, that out there as well.
Yeah.
Like, for me, that was a big shift. I was always very strict, like, this is personal, this is professional. I've got my evenings. And so my methods have changed there as well.
Absolutely, Nicole. And that's a really good point, because if they say, ooh, only reach me between 6 and 8 p.m., then that's when you should reach out to them, right? Make sure that you're accommodating them and providing that flexibility. We talked about flexibility earlier, providing them that flexibility. So that's a really good point. Thanks for sharing that, Nicole.
Yeah.
Let's talk about employees. So employees are looking for flexible options for work, right? They don't want to have I have to go to the job at 8 o'clock. I'm going to work till noon. I'm going to have an hour for lunch. I'm going to leave. I'm going to, I'm going to go back to work, and I'm going to work till 5. People are wanting more flexible options. Can I work from home some days? Can I come in different hours? Can I work part-time? Can I, start looking at some of those flexible options for work. The other thing is, wow, this pandemic that sent everybody home, when that was possible in certain offices, and they sent everybody home, we have to reimagine how productivity is measured. So it used to be you could walk by Joe's desk and see that Joe was working, or see that Joe was on Facebook, or see that Joe was away from Joe's desk, right? You could do all of those things. We can't do that when people are working from home. And it's making managers uncomfortable. It's making them wonder, is Joe working? I don't know. I need to put Joe on camera all day, every day, to see when Joe's away from their desk. I need to do this and do that. What I'm going to say is reimagine how productivity is measured. Start thinking about outcomes over output, right? You want to manage to results. Hey, by Friday, I need this report. If Joe decides to do it at 3 a.m, okay, you need it by Friday, right? Talk about expectations. Joe, I need this report by Friday, but I need you to have some office hours set up that all of us can get in touch with you, even though you're working from home. What does that look like for you? And work with Joe to set up those office hours. Make sure that you're spelling out the expectations you have of Joe, as well as spelling out the results you're expecting from Joe, so that Joe knows how he or she is being evaluated, and also what those expectations are, so that they can meet those expectations. Working with a diverse team, 86.
Courtney,
go ahead.
I'm sorry, let me interrupt a minute. We have a question in the chat about how do flexible hours relate to retail stores where they can't offer work from home or alternative hours? They have strict retail hours.
Right, they do. And that's tough. I grew up in retail furniture, so I totally understand what you're talking about. My grandfather actually built a furniture store out of a gas station. So he owned a gas station, started selling recliners. So I literally grew up in retail furniture, and it's hard, right? You've got to be at the store. You can't have a phone in kind of retail store. I don't know how that works, I guess online, but if you've got a brick and mortar store and you've got to be there, what I would be doing is talking to my employees about the hours they work, looking at coverage. Do they want to maybe work split shifts, or do they want to work half days, or do they want to work, what does that look like? And reevaluate with them, or kind of re-explore, if you will, with them, the hours that they're working, to see if it fits their schedule and it is the best for them. You might find that some of your retail workers are better in the afternoons than they are in the mornings, but you've got them on a morning shift. So start talking to them about when is their energy best, because you want them to be at their best when they're in the store, and you want them to be productive when they're in the store. So have more conversations around, if you had a perfect schedule, what would that look like? And you might start seeing that you might have to move some people around in the schedule that you're used to, But when you do that, your sales go up because people are more productive in the times that they're actually in the retail store. And you're providing them that flexibility, which we're seeing some of that flexibility, whether it's working from home or flexible work hours in the brick and mortar location. We're seeing that flexibility is increasing productivity. They feel cared about. They feel that you value them, which is what we're going to get into right now. So great question. Great question. All right, working with a diverse team, people want to have that diverse team, not only from maybe when we think about diverse teams, we're thinking about ethnicity, or we're thinking about race, or we're thinking about religion, or we're thinking about those types of diversity. I want you to also be thinking about cognitive diversity. What are their strengths and weaknesses? What do they, how do they think? And how can this cognitive diversity be appreciated so that you're partnering people that are good partners that don't think alike, but that work really well together? So look at cognitive diversity as well. And also, I would just say, as part of that diverse team, when we talk about obviously the diversity and equity and inclusion, and we talk about those things, I saw an article the other day that included B. So it was DEIB, and that B is belonging. How do we make all these people that are of diverse backgrounds, diverse cognitive reasoning, diverse races and ethnicities and religions, and all of these people, how do we help them all feel like they belong within the organization? And that's within our control. And those are things that you can put. You can put obviously policies in place that say you're not going to discriminate against anybody for any reason, but you also need to live that and believe it and make sure that people belong within your organization. And then physical and financial safety, we're talking about people that obviously you want developmental opportunities and good pay and benefits and those types of things. But we also want to make sure that they feel safe. And I think one of the things that we're seeing with the physical safety is that people are concerned about coming back to work now. We're seeing the spikes in COVID cases again. We're hearing about the hospitals that are coming to the end of their beds that are available. And it's starting to get a little dark and dreary, I guess, again. And so what we need to do is make sure that your employees are reacquainted with what you're doing in your brick and mortar stores, or when they're interacting with customers, if they actually are off site and they're going to a customer's house to, I don't know, lay carpet or hang drapes or do something like that, work on appliances, whatever that might be. You want to introduce them to all the safety measures you have in place and make sure that they're aware of it, so that they are more comfortable with, okay, we're still doing all of those things, right? We're hearing about all these things in the news, how we're starting to have poor trends with COVID, but my employer is still taking care of me and we are still doing these things, and make sure that they're reassured in that area. The other thing that I would say is that when your employees become disengaged, they leave. They just leave. They don't feel engaged. They're going to ghost you. They're going to leave for lunch and not come back. What I would say is you have some tools in your control that you can look at. Value your employees. Make sure that they feel valued. You want to make sure that they know that they're contributing to the success of the organization and the team, and that what they're doing is making a difference. And also that you value them as an individual and as a contributor to your team. So make sure that you're honoring them and valuing them. Show them compassion. Care about their well-being. Be alert to their actions. All of those things are important. Make sure that you're having meaningful dialogues with them. Make sure that you are talking to them and engaging in a feedback loop or in a dialogue with them, that they know that you care about them and you're talking to them about meaningful things, not just the weather. And then actively listen and see them. Those two things are really important. You want to make sure that you're hearing what the employees are saying, you're listening to their concerns, and then you're also seeing them as an individual. You know who they are and you care about who they are. So make sure that you're doing those things with employees. And then from a culture standpoint, what we want to do is we want to be looking at culture as a workplace culture, right? And that you have shared values and belief systems and attitudes. The way that I suggest that you do this is you want to agree on workplace values with your employees. You want to actually have conversations about workplace values. You probably have already established them for your workplace. So make sure that you're continuing that conversation. And every time you hire someone, make sure you're talking about that during the hiring process so they understand what those values are. Always discuss acceptable and unacceptable behavior in the workplace. Hey, this is what we do. We always make sure that we return emails within 24 hours, or we always make sure that we respond to voicemails during this certain period of time, or we always make sure that this is how we deal with each other. What's that acceptable and unacceptable workplace behavior that you have within your team? How the employees treat each other, how you as a manager or an owner treat the employees. What are those what I call tenets, right? You're going to establish those tenets of how you work with each other and develop those, and then implement the tenets so that all are aware and that there are really accountability measures in place. So I do this with a lot of clients, and I sit down and we go through this exercise and walk through it, and we leave that meeting with a series of values and tenets associated with those values that help that organization move forward and help everyone understand, oh, these are the ground rules. These are the guidelines, the guiding behavior that we're going to be having as we interact with each other. So that's really important within the culture. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about that's in your control is communication, right? I like this definition. Effective communication is when a message is sent and understood accurately, right? I mean, that's the bottom line. That's exactly what communication is making sure that what we say is heard the way we intend for it to be said, to be heard. And so that's important. So how do we control communication? The first thing is being respectful. Right? If we're respectful with each other, we have a different kind of relationship. We have a community. We talk to each other differently. We make sure that we're not derogatory. We make sure that we're not, using profanities. We're not yelling at each other. We're actually being respectful to each other. Listen actively to understand, not to respond. I don't know about you. Sometimes when my spouse and I are maybe in a little bit of a tiff, something might be said, and the other person is like, ooh, I've got the perfect answer for that, right? Instead of listening to actually what's happening to understand what the other person is saying. And I think we do that sometimes in our jobs as well. So we want to make sure that we're listening to understand what that person is saying and understand that person's point of view and learn more about them as an individual, and then have a different, a response dialogue with them from that understanding and from that place of understanding. Pay attention to nonverbal cues. If you're talking to somebody on Zoom and they're doing this, you might want to check and say, hey, are you okay? What's going on today? How are you feeling? Let's have a conversation about that. Now, if you're in a group meeting and you notice that somebody is not engaged in that Zoom call, then you want to probably, after the meeting, get back in touch with them and talk to them about that, so you don't call them out in front of the group. If you're in a brick and mortar store and you can tell somebody's not engaged, pull them aside. Ask them what's going on, especially if that individual is normally engaged, because there may be something going on in their life that would be helpful to know about. They may not want to share it, but just your act of saying, hey, I noticed something's off. I noticed that something isn't right. Make sure that you're making that connection with them. They're going to appreciate that, even if they can't share what's going on. Be personable. Wow. Don't be a robot. Don't just say, here are the 5 things I need to talk about in this meeting. Here are the things. Okay, now everybody go to work, right? Be personable, develop that relationship with them, and then be empathetic. Understand what people are going through right now. Understand that we're all in different spaces. We're all in different mindsets, if you will, throughout this entire pandemic. Even when the pandemic's over, we're still going to be in different mindsets. We're still going to come out of it on the other side with different mindsets. And so we need to understand that, and we need to be empathetic to other people. If somebody's irritable, say, yeah, I've been irritable too. Okay, let me see if I can help them. Let me see how I can work with them. Now, one thing I'm going to say is just a little asterisk there. If somebody comes in your office or comes in your place of business and is either verbally or physically abusive with another employee, that's a different matter. That's probably a different conversation, right, Nancy? That's another training that we need to go into as far as discipline and performance evaluations and performance management. But when we're dealing with somebody who you can just tell is having a rough day, be empathetic with them and see how you can help them. Okay. I wanted to leave enough time for us to be able to answer questions, talk about different areas that we've discussed today. Certainly, if you have other questions, I'm an HR consultant, so I might be able to help you on some other things. If something comes up, I'm happy to do that. Nancy, I'm going to kind of turn it over to you to help facilitate this, and we can open everybody up and they can chat or whatever we want to do here.
That sounds great. I think if you have a question for Courtney, if you'll just unmute and ask it. I'm not seeing anything in the chat, so we'll just let it be free for all.
I love a free for all. That's awesome.
Don't be shy. Also, someone asked if we are recording this, and this is being recorded, and I'm happy to send it out to all of our attendees.
I got a question. Am I heard?
Yes, you are, Susan. Go ahead.
Okay, awesome. Is there a point at which you realize your business cannot recover from the lack of employees? My personal example, it's a window cleaning company, and there's so much work,
Yeah.
and I've done most of the things that you have mentioned, not at full out, but touched on them, and I'm kind of leaning towards it's time to realize that it is not a business that can thrive in this environment. Are there parameters for that, or do you just never give up?
Well, a couple of things. I think what I'm hearing you say is that you've got a lot of business, but you don't have the staff to be able to handle that business. Is that what you're saying, Susan?
Yes, ma'am. And it's also all concentrated into 3 months.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is really, really difficult. There's a couple of things that my specialty is in the people side, right? The people ops. That's what I do. So from a business side, while I'm an SBDC consultant as well, I'm going to let the business gurus, if you will, at the SBDC take that. So I'll have Nancy and Jamie maybe pipe in here. But what I would say from the people ops side, Susan, is think about the kind of employees that you're trying to attract, and if you can get them, great. If not, you may need to start thinking about scheduling and flexible scheduling and how you're going to schedule customers and how you're going to schedule your employees, having really upfront conversations. If it's 3 months, you might say, maybe I want to look at 16, 17, 18-year-olds and have them do this if that's possible, because they may just want to do it over the summer months, for example. And so you've got to start kind of looking at all of the options before you think about shutting down your business. That's a personal decision. That's got to be your decision. But I think that there are a lot of options out there from a staffing standpoint that you might be able to look at with scheduling and with flexible hours, and maybe with not only scheduling staff, but also scheduling your employees. So Nancy and Jamie, you want to jump in here from a business standpoint? What might be a good idea or something to think about?
So I just put in the chat Jamie's email contact and mine for anybody who's interested in speaking with one of our business consultants. So Susan, one of your question really has to move around cash flow and what cash flow looks like and what the goals of your business are. So anyone who has those kind of questions, just feel free to reach out to Jamie or me. And I put our emails in the chat. And of course, I didn't even get mine right the first time, so I had to put it in a second time. But it's in the chat, and feel free to reach out to us.
And I would echo Courtney's comments about scheduling and seeing what's a realistic model. If it is more just you managing, is it also worth continuing just to support yourself? But I echo Nancy's comments.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
That's a tough one, Susan, and we're all rooting for you. It's a tough situation to be in.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm kind of like, we own a contracting business. my husband and I, and we're kind of like Susan in the fact that we're really struggling to find employees. It seems like every contractor in the whole valley is hiring right now, and we can only offer so many benefits that everybody else is offering. How could we stand out in our job advertising to be different than other people? And every newspaper that comes out, every online listing has 3 or 4 people looking for carpenters and laborers. How could that? I mean, we've thought about what we do offer retirement, we do offer, great benefits and blah, 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 but how do we portray that? And we're still not getting any calls.
Yeah. Yeah, that's tough because the job, the work itself, right, is similar. So we're looking for these types of laborers, and multiple contractors are looking for those types of laborers. I would venture to say, differentiate yourself based on some of the things that we've talked about today: flexibility, the culture, how you interact with your employees, those kinds of things. A lot of times putting those things in the job ad really helps to distinguish yourself from somebody else. So you want to make sure that the employee is going to understand the culture, right? That they're going to see a difference in your culture versus somebody else. So maybe you have the same type of benefits packages and the same type of pay. And in Colorado now, we can have transparency into that when we look at these jobs, because that's required now to put a range of pay and put a summary of benefits in the job ads. And so when you're looking at that, if you're saying, okay, we're all the same, there's nothing different, then start thinking about how your culture is different, how your scheduling of employees or working with employees is different, and how you can put some of those things in the ad to really make you stand out. So it's those, what am I going to say? The intrinsic value that you bring the employee when they come to work for you versus here's the benefits and here's the pay. You want to have a little bit of highlighting. I guess you want to highlight that intrinsic value you're going to bring the employee.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Courtney, I think that brings up a really good point in the fact that I don't think any of us want an employee who can just fog a mirror and wants a paycheck. I think that it's really about creating a community within the organization. So Colleen, for you, what you might look at is finding people who currently work for you, if they have qualified friends who would be interested, because we like to work with our friends. And maybe we would find that more interesting than just going somewhere to collect a paycheck.
You could even put quotes from your current employees about why they like working there.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's smart to talk to our current employees.
Yeah, you bet. Excuse me. Okay, what else? Okay, Nancy?
Courtney, I'm not seeing anything else in the chat. So I think with that, we're gonna remind people that you're going to be with us for 3 more sessions after the first of the year. Courtney will be back online with a webinar about HR basics, followed by a webinar about ensuring employee success. So you all might be interested in that. And then she's coming to the Western Slope, and she will be doing a couple of in-person trainings on the employee life cycle. And the employee life cycle talks about everything that happens with an employee from the recruitment to the time they leave the organization. So everything from soup to nuts. Courtney, would you like to expound on any of those?
Yeah, I mean, I think you did a really good job of just summarizing them quickly. The employee life cycle, I think, is one of those things that people look at and they say, I don't really understand the employee life cycle. And it does. It starts from before you hire an employee. So as an employer, what do you need to do before you even post the job? What work do you need to do to get ready to post that job? And we're going to talk about that in that particular workshop. And then as we work through that employee life cycle, during that workshop, the employee lifecycle workshop, we're going to actually produce some things for you that you can take back to your place of business and put into effect right away. So we're going to be talking about things that either it's a checklist or best practices with job descriptions or best practices with performance reviews and those types of things we're going to be talking about it. Certainly, we're going to be talking about performance management from a standpoint of developmental coaching or disciplinary coaching, and really how to tie that day-to-day management into making sure that your employees have the best performance success. So it's going to be the entire life cycle in a workshop. The other two are going to be focusing in on the topics. And so it's going to be kind of a microscopic viewpoint of those two topics so that we're going to be able to really dissect those, and you'll be going away with some good information and best practices there as well.
So we really look forward to that. And for everybody who's on this call today, we're happy to get that information out to you through our email and newsletters that come from Jamie and from me. And with that, Courtney, I just want to thank you for this great information and such wonderful, personable delivery of it. You've made it really interesting and entertaining. I want to remind the people who have joined us today that they are able to meet with Courtney. If you are interested in speaking with her about your business, just feel free to reach out to Jamie or me, and we can connect you with her. And with that, I will let you go and thank you for your time. Have a great day and happy holidays to everyone. Thanks for joining us.